Our next presentation is titled Unveiling Unwritten Curricula, Enhancing Junior Faculty Development in Academic Emergency Medicine, and this is presented by Dr. Abigail Borowski at the Thomas Jefferson University.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here. Like he said, my name's Abby Borowski. I'm finishing up my second year medical education fellowship at Jefferson, which is here in Philadelphia. Sorry about the weather. It's been beautiful for weeks, and then of course it rains the 3 days that everyone comes here. But so just jumping into it, this is our author list. None of us have any disclosures yet. So we know that the transition from resident to academic faculty member can be challenging, right, for a number of reasons. Not much has been published on this specific to EM, and what does exist doesn't examine the potential impact of the unwritten curriculum in this pivotal transition time. So unlike the hidden curriculum, which is often viewed as more of a negative kind of institutional level concept that involves more so like unintended or obscured lessons, the unwritten curriculum consists more of implicit norms and expectations that can influence things like faculty development, but they're not formally documented or communicated usually during onboarding. So what we do know is that a national needs assessment of EM faculty showed significant gaps in education-related programming and varying levels of early career satisfaction for junior faculty. And we also know that faculty retention is linked to implicit workplace expectations, and that failure to complete those expectations has actually been shown to lead to job departures in other disciplines. So the aim of our study was basically just to explore if and how the unwritten curriculum shapes junior faculty experiences and development in academic EM. So we employed a mixed methods design to explore the experience of EM faculty in academic roles within their first 5 years out from residency at institutions that were different from where they trained during residency. So no home field advantage, if you may. Faculty participated in an anonymous online REDCap survey. And though they were largely recruited through a convenience sample, we actually got pretty lucky and had a pretty diverse group of participants, both in terms of like individual demographics and from across the country geographically. So the survey itself contained both open-ended qualitative questions and then also quantitative Likert scale questions. So overall, the survey was developed using tenets of constructivism because we were examining how junior faculty members construct meaning from their experiences. And the survey questions were designed to address the 4 key domains of adaptation that are outlined in Schlossberg's transition theory framework, which are situation, self, support systems, and strategies. Sorry, my clicker is a little. So for our qualitative data analysis, we used a computer-assisted data analysis software called Deduce. So given that there's hardly any existing literature on this, basically, we iteratively derived categories through closely examining the actual textual data rather than through sort of an external thematic imposition. So we had 2 independent reviewers randomly review and openly code a subset of 50 randomly generated narrative responses. And then following that first round of independent coding, we developed a tentative codebook, reviewed all the responses, and then revised the codebook as needed. So we ended up having 35 respondents, but that totaled 385 narrative responses, many of which were assigned multiple codes and some of which were assigned none. And then once coding was complete, we summarized the qualitative content for each code, and then we used descriptive statistics to summarize response distributions for the quantitative data. So I think this was by far the most important piece of quantitative data that we collected. So all 35 participants indicated that the unwritten curriculum had some degree of influence on their professional development during their first years in attending. Most people said it influenced them either moderately, very much, or extremely. And then this figure just depicts the distribution of thematic codes across the narrative responses. So as you can see, there are 6 sort of major themes and then several other minor themes ranging from learning through observation and experience, professional confidence, conflict resolution, et cetera. For the sake of brevity, we only have 10 minutes here with you today, so I'm going to just go through the results from the major themes. So mentorship and peer guidance emerged as the most salient theme in qualitative responses. So participants consistently emphasized the importance of access to both formal and informal mentors, as well as the value of peer guidance in navigating their challenges as a new academic faculty member. So most people spoke of the importance of deliberate formal mentorship programs to better support junior faculty, and specifically they wanted senior faculty members who had similar interests, non-judgmental attitudes, and who worked a similar clinical burden. Beyond formal mentorship, many also emphasized the critical role that informal mentorship had in easing their transition. So faculty most frequently cited senior colleagues as their source of informal mentorship, but some also listed past colleagues, charge nurses, and other ancillary staff as sources of support and clarity. And then finally, and maybe most importantly, comes peer guidance. So one of the most recurring comments we saw throughout many responses was how isolating people's first year felt and how many of them felt like they were the only ones who felt that way. But peer support was able to offer sort of a uniquely reciprocal and community-driven dynamic, which can help alleviate that sense of isolation by fostering more of like a sense of belonging and addressing the additional emotional challenges that can come with transitioning to a new academic role. So another strong theme that emerged was the presence of implicit expectations and norms. So people described a range of unspoken rules they encountered. So everything from departmental politics to leadership structure to sign-out culture, and even more subtle expectations around things like conflict mediation with consultants. Many faculty noted they were expected to join committees, engage in extracurricular activities, and be available for student and resident mentorship, often without any formal acknowledgement or guidance. They also reported discrepancies between what was outlined in their contracts and what they were actually expected to do. And then things like scheduling, shift trades, APN supervision, and even how buy-down works all came up as areas where the rules had to be learned through observation, experience, or as one person put, like a water cooler type conversation. And while none of these things are inherently negative, the fact that they weren't formally communicated in any way created avoidable stress and kind of a steep learning curve that was challenging for faculty. So work-life integration, which we defined as the ability to balance clinical research, teaching, and personal responsibilities, also emerged as a significant challenge for many junior faculty members. Many noted the overwhelming and challenging nature of transitioning from a primarily clinical role in residency to a multifaceted role as an attending, though some actually described finding that balance as more of a fulfilling way to build a niche within EM, which was interesting. One other thing to note is that many previous studies have highlighted the challenge of balancing kind of work and home life. And so we were kind of surprised to find that really few respondents in our study mentioned that. They really focused more so on the challenge of balancing academic and clinical duties. So another key theme was cultural adjustment, or adapting to a department or institution's unique culture and values, which we saw as distinct from implicit expectations and norms because it aimed to encompass more so broader institutional dynamics beyond just individual roles. So many faculty found cultural adjustment to be the most challenging aspect of their transition, and they emphasized the importance of navigating informal power dynamics and aligning with cultural values of their institution. So the quantitative data also confirmed the variability of faculty experiences. So most respondents rated their cultural assimilation as average, so I think there's also some room for improvement there. And then junior faculty also consistently expressed stress related to scholarly output, which probably surprises no one, especially research and grant writing. So a recurring theme was the lack of clarity surrounding expectations for scholarly output, and for many, the emphasis on research output sometimes perceptively valued over teaching and clinical responsibilities, which also added to the pressure. And then for many, that stress was further compounded by an absence of formal training in essential skills for things like this, like study design, statistics, grant writing. But despite those challenges, a lot of people acknowledge the potential of research as a vessel for career advancement, collaboration, and networking both within EM and within other specialties. And then finally, onboarding and role transparency were also identified as critical areas for improvement. So many faculty cited gaps in their orientation, unclear role expectations, and a lack of open communication and transparency around key process during onboarding as a significant challenge in their transition. And then several people did offer suggestions to improve the onboarding process, emphasizing the need really for just transparency and proactive communication. So in conclusion, the findings of the study really underscore the impact of the unwritten curriculum on junior faculty experiences. Providing clear guidance, fostering structured mentorship, and supporting scholarly growth are really essential to ensure that new faculty members thrive early in their careers. Additionally, I think it's interesting the disconnect between scholarly expectations and faculty preparedness really highlights an area for improvement, potentially both in residency training and junior faculty development programs. Ultimately, faculty success should not depend on luck or chance, but I think if departments prioritize mentorship, transparency, and structured career development, they can create an environment where junior academic faculty don't just survive, but rather thrive early in their careers. Thank you so much.
This abstract is now open for questions. If you could go to the podium, state your name.
Hi, Abby, Judd Hollander. I'm also from
Judd.
Jefferson, so a little strange to ask a Jefferson on Jefferson question, but I want to be a little provocative. We don't expect people to do neurosurgery or emergency medicine without training. Why do we expect people to do research with no research training?
It's a great question. I mean, as a junior faculty member, great question for senior faculty members. I mean, I think it's just, you know.
Right back at you.
Dr. Hollander. No, but I think it's just, you know, it's an innate part of academia. I mean, I did a lot of, for example, EMS research really when I was a med student, and then kind of transitioned more into kind of what I've come into with my involvement with medical education and GME leadership. But really transitioning from how to do quantitative research to qualitative research is also a whole different beast. So luckily, I chose to do a fellowship, and so I got a lot of formal training that way. But I think it's tough because a lot of people don't do fellowships and they still get academic roles, and then they're expected not only to produce scholarly output themselves, but also mentor residents and students on how to do it too. So definitely room for improvement there. Yeah.
Bob Swore from Beaumont Hospital. Congratulations. When I read your title, it resonated with me. It was really well focused. I was chagrined that you only had 35 people. How many people did you reach out to try to get for the survey? Because I would suspect that the people that were most chagrined would be the ones that would respond. So.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, again, it was definitely a convenient sample, so we were lucky that several people from our institution filled it out. More of a voluntel from me. Can you please do this to help me? But we also then it was sort of like friends of friends of friends. But I think overall, I would say not all of the narratives were negative. Like people were really excited and willing to share positive aspects of their transition as well, even though the data that I presented might have focused a little more on like how we can improve. But yeah, it was mostly people that I had known from residency and then kind of their colleagues and friends of colleagues, and we just kind of got lucky that it was a pretty good geographic distribution. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Katie Sungvi from Rutgers. My question was, do you know what years these faculty members that you interviewed became faculty? A lot of what you said resonated with me. I've just finished my 5th year as an attending, but if you do the math, that means I became an attending in 2020 when the pandemic hit, and I feel like a lot of the things that made me feel less supported as an attending had to do with just the fact that the entire world was closed down and it was hard to kind of develop community and things like that. So.
Yeah, definitely. So most, I would say, I have the exact statistics, but most people were in their 2nd year out. There was a handful that were in their 1st year out. I think we only had 2 or 3 respondents that were in their 5th year as an attending. And same, it was like maybe 4 or 5 people that were in their 4th or 5th year as an attending. But yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I think a lot of it also just depends on the culture of where you're joining and if people are open to basically making new friendships and how important fostering camaraderie is to your faculty group. And then on top of that, compounded by a global pandemic where everyone is 6 feet apart or more, definitely more challenging to foster that sense of community and belonging. Yeah. Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Borowski.